back to the Mike and George Show. Coming up on today's podcast, we're going to discuss this fantastic World Series that we got going on right now, 2-2, as we head into this pivotal Game 5. We are going to recap some head coaching firings in college football, George. Last time we spoke, there were 2 less SEC coaches that were fired. Now there are 2 more SEC coaches that are fired. And we'll also do a midseason check-in on the NFL as we are 8 weeks down into the NFL season. So, George, we got to start with the World Series, though. This has been the last time we recorded this. The Jays were down 2-0 to the Mariners. The Dodgers were up 2-0 over the Brewers. The Dodgers swept their way to the World Series, as we know. The Blue Jays had to come back from 2-0 down to Seattle, won 2 games in Seattle. Then we obviously saw the Suarez grand slam that won the Mariners Game 5. They come back to Toronto, only needing to win 1 game to get to their first World Series. The Jays were able to win both games at home. And obviously we know the big thing that happened in Game 7 was the George Springer 3-run homer to get the Jays to the World Series. Another iconic 3-run 7th-inning homer for the Jays. I'm thinking back to Jose Bautista's 3-run homer in the 7th inning of that winner-go-home game against the Rangers 10 years ago in 2015. Joe Carter's 3-run homer to walk off the Phillies in 93. I'm thinking of Edwin Encarnacion's 3-run homer to walk off the Orioles in the 2016 wildcard game. The Jays have had their fair share of iconic 3-run bombs. That one is right up there with all of them to send Toronto to the World Series for the first time since the aforementioned 1993. So let's just start with that, George. What are our thoughts heading? What were our thoughts heading into this World Series? Because obviously, last time we talked, we didn't even know the matchup yet. What were our thoughts on that ending of the Seattle-Toronto series?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we kind of talked a little bit about how we thought it was kind of just technicality. Whoever the Dodgers played, they were just going to get ran through just based on how good that team was playing. But, dude, the credit to the Jays. The Jays played really, really well down the stretch. Springer, obviously, he's been known in the playoffs to kind of elevate his game. He did it back with the Astros, was it 8 years ago now in 2017 and on. And then here he is in Toronto doing the same. But it felt like whoever we were getting out of the AL was going to be a lot of fun. Jays, Mariners, I'm happy either way. But
what a series.
Jays, what a series. Unbelievable series. And then, what you said, first time in 32 years that the World Series is in Toronto. So,
yeah, I mean,
can't talk enough about Springer there. Obviously, you got Bo Bichette now back for the World Series. I'm sure we're going to get into that a little bit more now. But I mean, it was a hell of a comeback. They just never say die, and that's kind of just what you got to do in the playoffs in October. So great job.
Yeah, and by the way, the Jays and the Dodgers are the top 2 teams in baseball this year in coming from behind. So this is not a surprise that the Jays were able to come back, not just in the series against Seattle, but obviously in Game 7 down 3-1 in the 7th inning there. They were able to come back and win that game. So they have come back before. The Dodgers, same thing. But let's get into the actual World Series here, George. So 4 games in, just to recap, the Blue Jays bludgeoned the Dodgers in Game 1 behind a 9-run 6th inning. It's tied for the most runs ever in an inning in a World Series game. That 6th inning for the Blue Jays in Game 1 was crazy. And again, this is all to go back to our point. We talked about this in our pilot episode, where it's like the Jays just are able to get to the bullpen. This is how they play. This is how they make contact. They don't strike out. And they were able to, not strike out against Blake Snell and work his pitch count up. His fastball location wasn't the greatest in Game 1. They were able to get to the bullpen, and you obviously saw that 9-run inning in the 6th inning in Game 1 was all Toronto needed for sure, including the Addison Barger grand slam. That was the moment of Game 1. And then obviously you saw Game 2. I believe the last time we recorded this, Yoshinobu Yamamoto had a complete game against the Brewers. Well, ho-hum, he goes complete game again against the Blue Jays. 9 innings, what bullpen? In Game 2. The Dodgers didn't have to even use the bullpen in Game 2 because Yamamoto was just an absolute robot and a machine. So those first 2 games in Toronto, George, what did you make of those first 2 games? Obviously, the Dodgers getting the split behind the Yamamoto performance, and then the Jays bats erupting in Game 1, kind of making the world know, hey, we're here too. This is going to be a real World Series.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of saw in Game 1. I thought the Jays obviously set the tone, and there was a lot of conversation about the ALCS was a long series. Dodgers got there quickly. Maybe they would come and, look a little tired, look a little whatever, but none of that. Yeah, rest over rust, that whole thing. But none of that. The Jays immediately, and to me, they showed the blueprint to what it means to beat the Dodgers, right? Obviously, Blake Snell is a great starting pitcher. He's been excellent pretty much all throughout the playoffs so far, really the last half of the year here. And, you get him out early enough and you make him have to rely on that bullpen long term. And you can really beat the Dodgers. You can get him in an uncomfortable position. Obviously, Game 3, we saw a little bit of a different story where 18 innings, you saw the bullpen. You saw the bullpen just go forever, and it never really let up, obviously. But yeah, I thought that Game 1 was really impressive from the Jays. Game 2, when Yamamoto's on, there's just not much to be said. It's just unfortunate, but it's just kind of one of those things. And that's the thing with the Dodgers. That's the reason I felt so confident in them going into this series, is that if their guys are on, there's just nothing you can do, I think. Just starting pitching wise in that lineup, and when Shohei gets going, which he's obviously done so far here in the last couple of games, there's just kind of nothing to be done. But the Jays are hanging in there. Credit to them. They've been really scrappy, really strong, and that game one set the tone. So it kind of like you said, lets you know that, hey, this is by no means an easy World Series. They're not just going to get here just to lay over for the Dodgers. So yeah, it's, to me right now 2-2. It feels like it's anyone's game. But I was impressed by the Jays being able to hold their own right off the gate.
Yeah, I mean, George, you mentioned the starting pitching. The Blue Jays have had to go through a couple starting pitching rotations. The Mariners obviously has a very good starting pitching staff. The Yankees obviously had Schlittler, Fried, Rodon, and the Blue Jays said, we don't care. We're going to get to that bullpen by some way. We're going to figure out a way to get to it that's because they put the bat on the ball a lot, George. They are able to work counts, and they do not strike out, and they're able to make these guys not go as long as you anticipate. Obviously, Yamamoto went all 9 innings, but that was the exception. Other than that, in these first 4 games, the other 3 games, the Jays have been able to get to the bullpen sooner than I think anyone anticipated. And that included last night with Shohei Ohtani in the mound. But I want to go back to game 3, George. Obviously, the 18-inning marathon, the second longest game in World Series history, tied for the longest game in terms of innings goes. But with the pitch clock, it was a little bit shorter as far as like the actual length of the game. But I mean, George, that was one of the greatest World Series games of all time. And it's unfortunate that my Jays were on the other end of it. But as a baseball fan, you can't help but marvel at the actual play of the actual game. I don't know if you saw this. The highlights that they put up after the game, usually they're like 9 or 10 minute highlights, whatever. It was a 33-minute highlight after the game. Whenever the game finally ended, there was so many unbelievable defensive plays in that game, base running plays. I'm thinking about Vladdy touching home plate just before Will Smith tags. I'm thinking about the Vladdy 99-mile-an-hour throw across the diamond to third to get Teoscar. I'm thinking about the Teoscar Hernandez relay to get David Schneider at the play. I'm thinking about the Tommy Edman play in the outfield to get Idaner Kiner-Falefa at third base. I mean, there was so many unbelievable defensive plays in that game. Varsho had a couple warning track catches. I mean, that game 3, George, no matter who wins the series, that'll go down as one of the greatest games in the history of the World Series. It would have been an all-time great game, even if it ended in 9 innings. There was so much stuff that happened in the first 9 innings. Then we got a whole nother baseball game, which went 18 innings. It was unbelievable, that game, George. I mean, I know I was up watching it, unfortunately. I don't know if you stayed up till 3 a.m. to watch it, but it was just absolute mayhem baseball at its finest. Yeah,
I didn't quite make it to the end, I will say. I felt pretty bad falling asleep in what it was, the 15th inning or whatever it was at 2 a.m. there.
It was a while, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that this game, like you said, it was one of the best baseball games, period, but World Series games, obviously, ever. And, the second 9 innings almost takes away from how great the first 9
innings were.
Because had this game ended in the 9th inning or the 10th inning, you just be hearing about, like you said, all those great defensive plays. Shohei Ohtani obviously never got out this game. He was unbelievable. We'll get to him in a sec. But, all these awesome plays in this pitching duel back and forth World Series game. And, the extra 9 innings almost took away a little bit of the shine because everyone's just thinking about how is this game still going on. But like I said, Shohei Ohtani was 4 for 4, 2 homers, 2 doubles, and 5 walks. And I mean, that 7th inning, you kind of just felt it. And it's not that it's impossible to get him out. Obviously, he had actually been struggling a little bit coming into that game, like in general in the playoffs. But you just think like, hey, if you pitch this guy in a 1-run game, he's going to tie the game. And that's what he did. And then from there, I mean, obviously, Schneider learned his lesson. He's not going to throw to him. Seems like the rest of the series here.
5 straight walks after that.
Yeah, 5 straight walks after that. But I mean, it was just an unbelievable game. So many times I thought it was going to be over. I mean, I think both teams have bases loaded multiple times in the extra innings. Clayton Kershaw came in and didn't give it up. Like it was just like all the unthinkable things came to fruition here in the extra innings. But I mean, it was so fun. It reminded me a little bit of that. And we talked about 2017 a minute ago. It was like 2017 Game 5, I think. Or whatever it was.
All-time game.
It was like 11-10 Dodgers Astros. It was just one of those kind of awesome World Series games. And, it really makes you think like, yeah, we got the right 2 teams here in this one. Dodgers and Blue Jays, this feels like the right 2.
It's the 2 best teams. I was going to say that Game 5 in 2017. And also it wasn't just like a Game 5. It was a 2-2 series that dictated who's in the World Series. Yeah, this was a 1-1 series dictating who would go up 2-1 in the series. This was a huge game. And you mentioned Kershaw, the future Hall of Famer, coming in and getting 1 out in the 12th inning with the bases loaded. That kind of goes under the rug too, because it was 6 more innings of baseball after that. So it was like, now there's this Will Klein guy who's throwing gas. It's like now there's this other guy, Eric Lauer, is going to be an unsung hero. Unfortunately, the Jays didn't win the game, but he went 5 innings.
He was. I mean, bases loaded. He was throwing straight. It was unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. He got out of so many jams. He got out of a jam where he let up a leadoff double to Edman, and then 2 guys on, nobody out, and he was able to get out of it. All the bullpen guys for both teams. By the way, the bullpen is like the kind of like the weak spot of both of these teams. and they just kept putting up zero somehow. It was unbelievable war of attrition.
Sure.
Unfortunately, in that game, and I don't want to highlight it too much, but John Schneider kind of purged his own lineup there. The Jays, if you look at the Jays lineup in extra innings, it was a bunch of nonsense. It was Vladdy and a bunch of friends. It was just it was nothing. Kirk was out, so Kirk's bat you didn't have in extra innings. You had Tyler Heineman. Obviously, you didn't have Springer who got hurt with the oblique, and he might not return in this series, unfortunately. Bo Bichette you took out for defense, and you put in Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, so you didn't have him. You didn't have Barger in because you thought that Miles Straw was faster, and you wanted him to pinch run. So you didn't have your big bats of Springer, Kirk, Barger, or Bichette in all of those extra inning games, or in all those extra innings moments. So you didn't really have the lineup that the Dodgers had. It felt like inevitability the Dodgers would end up walking them off, and Freddie Freeman finally did get one over the wall. But just what a war of attrition in that game. I mean, I'm going to – unfortunately, we lost it, but I'm going to think about that game for a long, long time. And it felt like Max Scherzer and Tyler Glasnow pitched like 5 days ago. No, that was only yesterday. That was only 2 days ago. That wasn't that 18-inning game. It just felt like it was a week ago because of so much happening in that game. But, yeah, to get to Ohtani, he reached base 9 times in that game. That's obviously blows out the record, which was previously 6 in a playoff game. So he got on base 5 times via the walk. He had 2 doubles and he had 2 home runs. He had 4 extra base hits in the World Series. And if you thought his game last week was good, George, when he had 3 home runs, he was 3 for 3 with 3 home runs, and he went 6 innings, struck out 10, and gave up no runs against the Brewers to get them to the World Series. This one was equally as impressive too, because it was an 18-inning marathon. He got on base 9 times. It was insane. He tied the game at 2 different occasions with a 2-run shot and then a solo shot in the 7th to tie it up at 7 apiece, or to tie it up at 5 apiece. But it was just a crazy game. All the stars showed out. Vladdy was unbelievable. Shohei obviously was unbelievable. And then you got the Freddie Freeman walk-off home run. And all of that being said, George, so the Dodgers win the marathon 2-1, or then go up 2-1 in the series and winning in 18 innings. Less than 24 hours later, the Jays get off the mat and they punch back with Ohtani on the mound. And they win a game that no one saw them winning after getting punched in the gut last night at like 3 a.m. So really not even last night or this morning. So they come out and they win last night over the Dodgers 6-2. They were able to get to the bullpen, get to Anthony Bonda, get to Blake Trinan, and then they put up a 6-spot. And Ohtani, I thought, pitched pretty well. He made one mistake to Vladdy, left that hanging sweeper up, and Vladdy sent it to the seats. But outside of that, George, I thought he pitched pretty well. But the Dodgers' offense has been struggling right now. What do you make of that game 4 last night?
Yeah, I mean, it was really a weird spot because, obviously you played pretty much 2 baseball games right before.
Literally.
And for Shohei, I mean, obviously he to come out and pitch after all that is unbelievable. Crazy. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I felt like he pitched well enough for them to win. With that lineup, you think that you go 6 innings. I mean, 4 runs, it's not ideal.
The two were charged to him, but obviously, it was he gave up 2 runs.
They were giving up. Yeah. But I mean, still, all things, you go 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, and you kind of limit that Jays offense. You think your guys are going to pick you up a little bit, and it was just kind of a bit of nothing. I mean, the top of the order produced enough. Freeman 2 for 4, Betts 1 for 4, Shohei had a walk. But after that, you got to drive the guys in, and credit to the Jays. I thought that Bieber pitched pretty well. He did what he needed to do. He's not the guy that we remember from a couple of seasons ago winning all those Cy Youngs. But I mean, yeah, he's gives you 5 strong innings. 3 Ks, 1 earned. So I mean, that's all you need out of him in the World Series, especially in that spot coming off whatever last night was. And actually, he mentioned, I think, in his post game saying that he was going to pitch potentially the night before and just kind of use it as like a warm up for his start, and he was going to do both. He said, but same with also Yamamoto too. But
crazy, that was insane too.
Yeah, unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, this one felt like one the Jays obviously needed. 3 can't really go down 3-1 even when it's going back. Or not even when it's going back. They're playing another one tonight
at Los Angeles. Yeah,
but yesterday guaranteed it to go back to Toronto. Sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, I thought that the Dodgers just kind of felt a little dead, and it's almost like when Shohei goes, they go. And I'm not saying it's that because obviously that lineup is full of studs, and Freeman has all the walk-off stuff from last year and this year. But I mean, you need your main guy to deliver, and he was 0 for 3, and that kind of just felt like the story. But credit to the Jays for bouncing back in a big spot there in LA.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned yesterday the Jays winning that game. Not only did it even it up at 2 apiece, it guarantees that the season will end in Toronto, and they will get a chance to win the championship in their home field. So even if they lose tonight to the Dodgers, I really don't think they can afford to lose to the Dodgers tonight. And I say that because they have to face Yamamoto in Game 6, which he looks unhittable right now. And I don't know, you touched on it briefly. In that 18-inning game, had it gone to a 19th inning, Dave Roberts
in the bullpen.
It would have been Yamamoto that come out for the 19th inning. 2 days after throwing a 105 inning or a 105 pitch complete game, all 9 innings he went, and he would have pitched 2 days later in what would have been the 3rd baseball game, basically, because they already played 2 whole baseball games in that game. If it went to the 19th inning, it would have been literally a third baseball game that night. And Yamamoto would have came out on 2 days rest. That would have been insane. Thankfully, we didn't see it, but we still lost the game. But now we got to face him in game 6. So it feels like tonight, George, this pivotal game 5, 2-2, it feels like whoever wins this game is in a really, really good spot heading back to Toronto. Yeah. Whether it's the Dodgers, if they go up 3-2, they only need to win 1 game in Toronto, and they have their guy Yamamoto for game 6. If the Blue Jays win tonight, they'll head back home, only need to win 1 game. Now, obviously, they do have to face Yamamoto in game 6, but in game 7, it would be the same guys, Scherzer and Glasnow, in that crazy 18-inning marathon. So the Jays have to like their chances. They were able to get to Glasnow and make him look at least a little human. So if it does get to a game 7, the Jays should feel very confident. If they lose tonight, though, I don't know if it gets to a game 7 because you got to face Yamamoto in game 6. That would be really, really difficult. But game 3 kind of felt like the series to me. But then the Jays got off the mat and won game 4, and now it feels like we're back even. And we're like, okay, now it comes down to tonight. Game 5 could be everything. Like it's another swing game. Game 3 when it's 1-1 is a big swing game. Game 5 when it's 2-2 is an even bigger swing game. So who do you like in this game tonight? Obviously the starting pitchers tonight are Blake Snell for the Dodgers and Trey Savage for the Blue Jays. It's the same guys as game 1, and the Blue Jays were able to get Snell out of there in the start of the 6th inning, and they were able to get to Bonda and Blake Trinan in the Dodgers bullpen in the 6th inning and put up a 9 spot in the 6th inning. I don't think they're going to be able to get Blake Snell out of the 6th inning this time. But what do we envision seeing in this game 5?
Yeah, to me, it comes down to starting pitching. Obviously, kind of what you're getting to there. I trust Blake Snell obviously more than I'm going to say I trust Trey Savage, regardless of the impressive meteoric rise that Savage has had through the minors this season. Yeah. But to me, it just comes down to Snell locating the off-speed stuff. I've been harping on this kind of since we've been talking about him, and we're always talking about him because he just keeps winning. But he's not at his best when he's missing location with the fastball. Obviously, is the out pitch, but he sets up his fastball well with that curveball changeup mix. And so when he can locate that off-speed stuff and the Jays have to trust that he can throw all 3 for a strike, that's when he can really settle in. So to me, I trust the Dodgers a little more in this one, obviously, with the experience starting pitching. But, it comes down to, frankly, scoring runs. We've seen the Jays, when they score 6 or more, they don't lose. So, if the Jays can get 6, I think the Jays are going to win this one. Will they get 6? I don't think so. I think that I trust the Dodgers a little more here. But it's so tough to predict. Baseball is so weird because if Blake Snell's middle finger feels a little bit weird on his throwing hand, then his slider doesn't land how it usually does. So there's a lot of things that can go into it, obviously. I trust the Jays' approach. They're not going to swing at the bad stuff. They're going to. They've seen Snell once already. They got to him. They know how to get to him. But to me, if Snell's located and he's playing the fastball off the changeup, it's going to be a tough night for the Jays. But hey, we got 2 really talented arms here, so frankly, it's not exactly a gimme either way by any means.
No, Savage started the season in Single A. He's now pitching for a second time in the World Series. That doesn't even make sense to even say out loud.
He was 15 months ago. He was playing in the College World Series.
He was literally at Eastern Carolina. Yeah, East Carolina 15 months ago. That's insane to think about that he's playing in the World Series against this lineup, the Dodgers, and he was able to kind of get out of some jams in that first game. Yeah, only held them to, I believe, 2 runs. The other 2 runs came off of an Ohtani home run later in the 7th or 8th inning, but. Yeah, he actually pitched pretty well in game 1. That's that splitter that he obviously loves and that high release point was working. Snell said after game 1, he's like, I learned some things. So he's going to probably pitch a little bit differently this time. Now, again, for the Blue Jays, no George Springer. I don't know how you can really replace George Springer. I love the guys off our bench. They're obviously good contact guys, but there's no one replacing George Springer's instant offense at the leadoff spot. There's just no one that's able to do it. Yeah. Now Bichette takes over in that DH spot that Springer was in. And obviously Bo's been our best hitter all year. But he is dealing with a knee injury. Now, he did have a big moment last night where he had that almost a double, but it got all the way to the wall. It was a long single, but he drove in a run to make it 5-1 in that game off of Trinan on that slider that didn't really slide. But, Bo Bichette, if there's anyone that could replace Springer, I guess it would be him because, he's been our best hitter all year, but he's not really healthy right now. So can the Jays find that instant offense? The difference, though, and you touched on it, the Dodgers last night were 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. If that continues, the Jays have a shot. Like the Jays absolutely have a shot. If they're able to minimize damage in that one inning where Bieber had some traffic, he only gave up that 1 run because Kike Hernandez had a sac fly. It was not a big inning, even though there was a lot of guys on base because the Dodgers were not able to get that big hit with runners in scoring position. So that was a big deal for the Blue Jays to not give up the huge inning. The Blue Jays themselves they have big innings themselves. They had a 9-run inning in the 6th inning of game 1. They had the 4-run inning last night in the 7th inning to win that game and go up 6-2. So if they're able to get the big inning, the Dodgers aren't. The Jays absolutely have a shot, especially when both bullpens are a little shaky, aside from that 18-inning marathon game where they were both locked down. But if it comes down to the bullpens, I mean, I think the Jays absolutely have a shot to win the series. I mean, I really do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that, and even with, the Trinan kind of being really productive and Sasaki being in that bullpen spot and, he's been really good in the playoffs. I think that regardless, if you can get a guy out in the 5th or the 6th, like we talked about, and make him get to that 9th inning, it's a huge win, like you said. And the thing is, you're seeing the same guys. A lot of the same guys. And so I'm not saying it's going to be easy by any means. Everyone throws 100. Everyone's got 2 pitches or more. But, when you start seeing those pitch shapes over and over again, you see that Trinan sinker over and over again, it gets a little bit easier. So, obviously, you pick up on it. And obviously, Springer is huge. You need him to get healthy as soon as possible. If you're going to win this, you need George Springer, it kind of feels like. But, I mean, there's a lot of dudes on both of these teams. Obviously, the Dodgers, we've talked about it. But the Jays have a lot of guys that can pick up the slack. If Vladdy starts hitting the way he was against the Yankees, you just don't really know what's going to happen.
And last night, you saw it. Yeah,
exactly. And you saw the great swing against Shohei last night. So, I mean, or not last night. That was
last night. It was last night.
I'm mixing up my games now. But yeah, no, exactly. So you just don't know who's going to get going. But I mean, it's about starting pitching. Both of these guys don't trust their bullpens a ton. But, you Savage on the road in a World Series Game 5, huge game.
Huge spot.
I'm excited to see how he responds, because this is a spot where a lot of guys would fold. A lot of seasoned guys would fold.
Well, remember, George, in the Savage's 3 starts this postseason, or I guess this is his 4th start, he started against the Yankees at home in Game 2 of that LDS series. He started against the Mariners at home in Game 2 of the LCS, and he started against the Mariners at home in Game 6 of the LCS. And then again, he started against the Dodgers at home in Game 1.
So this
is the 5th start, but it's the first road start in the playoffs for Trey Savage. It's not just a road start in Kansas City against the Royals. It's a road start against the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium. In the World Series in that stadium. So it's a huge spot for the rookie. I mean, I'm not going to bet against the Jays at this point, because the Jays have just anytime the Jays are not supposed to win, they somehow win. It's very, very interesting. And they're never down, they're never out of a game, even if they're down. It's very strange. But ultimately, the Dodgers, in a best of 3, you still have to like your chances if you're a Dodgers fan, because you have the starting pitching advantage. And if Snell pitches the way we know he can, then it's, if it's Snell, Yamamoto, it could easily be, it could easily be Snell's awesome tonight, Yamamoto's awesome in Friday, and the Dodgers are able to get out of here with a 6-game series win. But it'd be a stressful 6 games. I mean, this could very easily go 7, and the Dodgers are not a shoo-in to win this right now. I mean, if they go up 3-1 last night, it's over probably. But 2-2, Toronto's 2 wins away from the World Series championship. Like, they're very close right now. It's anyone's series at this point in time. This has been. I was looking at a comment yesterday, George. It's probably been the best World Series since that Nationals Astros 2019 series. I mean, the other ones have kind of all been. I mean,
I don't think it's gone 7 games since then. If I remember,
no, nothing's been 7 games.
2020 was COVID. I mean, if it finishes the way it started, I think that's for sure. I mean, obviously that 2019 World Series has a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
The road team won every game that series. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But with 3 games to play here, it really is almost a coin toss. Obviously with some of the arms that the Dodgers throw out there, you think that they're favored. But like I said, you're seeing a lot of these guys for the second time, especially after that 18th inning. You had a whole extra game in there against these guys.
You saw more of them, yeah.
So you not only did you see the pitchers, but you also saw what the hitters' tendencies look like. So there's just so much to see, and it comes down to me, it's who allows their team to win it. Managerial wise, you see a lot of times in the playoffs, managers tend to overmanage or undermanage. You got to let your team win. What got you all the wins this season? Stay with your game plan, put the ball in play, do it the hard way, do it right. And so to me, that's what it's going to come down to. And it's a couple bounces. It really is a couple bounces. So, I get excited.
I was just going to mention the 2020 World Series, whenever it was the Rays and the Dodgers. Blake Snell gets taken out of that game.
Oh my gosh. I remember
it looked like he was going to go to 7 games because he was pitching so unbelievably. And Kevin Cash takes him out of the game. And the Dodgers come back and win that game and win the series in 6 games. So it could very well be one of those things where it's like, a manager takes a guy out early or doesn't take a guy out early enough. And that could be the difference in a World Series. And that's why these teams are so close right now. I mean, the Dodgers on paper have more talent than anybody, but they have not been pushed all playoffs like this, like they have with the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays have showed not a weakness, but because we knew the Dodgers bullpen was not the greatest in the world, but they've shown an ability of this is how you can beat them. If you get to their bullpen by the 5th or 6th inning, you have a shot. And the Blue Jays can do that by putting the bat on the ball and, making contact. It works. And obviously they're a great team with runners in scoring position, as we've talked about all year. And I've been harping on this as a Blue Jays fan. This is how we play. And people are kind of shocked in the playoffs. It's like, how are the Blue Jays playing like this? They've been playing like this all year long. This is kind of how they play. This is their brand of baseball. They're not really changing anything. The Dodgers aren't changing anything either. But if, Mookie Betts wakes up, if Max Muncy wakes up, obviously the Dodgers are, probably going to win. But the Blue Jays got to give them credit too. They're kind of keeping those guys at bay. Outside of Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman, they're keeping the rest of the Dodgers offense at bay. And we know how many studs are in that lineup. But overall, we have a tremendous World Series right now, George. It's a best of 7 has turned into a best of 3, which is all you can ask for in the sport. It seems like we're going to get a dramatic ending to what's been an awesome baseball season. But let's move on to, by the way, George, last time we recorded this, Billy Napier was still at Florida. Brian Kelly was still at still at LSU.
The biggest news was James Franklin at the time.
At that time, the biggest news was exactly right. The biggest news was James Franklin. Now there is 3 head coaching vacancies at 3 very prominent schools. You could argue 3 top 10 coaching jobs that are just come open in the last. And you can argue Florida State might be next, possibly. Mike Norvell's not.
They're talking about it.
He hasn't won an ACC game since me and you were still taking that one class that we're talking about. It's been a long time though. He has not won an ACC game in a long time. But Brian Kelly's gone. Billy Napier's gone. Which one should we start out with, George?
I think we can go Billy first. He was fired earlier. It's been about a week and a half now. And with Napier, the writing was kind of on the wall. The reports were kind of out before the game against Mississippi State. That kind of win or lose. This might have been the end. And when he was asked about it, he kind of didn't really deny it. He was kind of just like, I love my players. Yeah. And it's tough because anytime a guy gets fired, and you're going to kind of see me have a different take on this than the Penn State situation. Yeah. Because Penn State wise, and obviously, there are different levels of programs, but the level of a program that an LSU and a Florida is much, to me, that's that kind of that blue blood, that SEC, that well-established, the donors have
expectations,
high expectations. And so when you got a guy there and he doesn't meet the expectation right away, then I understand get him out early. That's the thing I didn't love about Franklin at Penn State, was that he built that program to where it is now. Right. Kind of let him go about it. But with Napier, it kind of just felt like, and when they fired, it was a Dan Mullen right before him. I thought that he was fired a touch prematurely.
I did too.
I thought that it was a spot where he won a lot of football games, and he only had, I think, 3 years there to really prove himself. And he
couldn't beat Bama, and they fired him. It's like, oh, okay.
He couldn't beat Bama, but nobody beat Bama. So to me, I didn't love going to Napier already, but when he was there, I thought that he never really lived up to it. And obviously, he came in at a time where everything is changing. Florida, what it once was, it still is that, but you have to be very specific in the way you hire and the way you recruit and where your money goes. And so I think that the role of a general manager is so much more sought after now. And I think that similar with Brian Kelly, I thought that Napier just didn't have that in him, and I think that I like a lot more. I think that Napier did a better job at Florida than Kelly did at LSU.
100%.
But unfortunately, it's the same fate for both of them. So, I can't say it's a justifiable fire. I understand it more for LSU and Florida than I do Penn State. Yeah. But I'd love to hear what you think, because it's a tough spot talking about this stuff.
I agree with the Dan Mullen thing. They fired him because he lost 2 SEC championships to Alabama. He lost to that COVID year where they lost 54-48 or whatever it was with Kyle Trask. It's like that Bama team.
That's a bounce. That's a call. That's a flag the other way.
Yeah. By the way, the Bama team in 2020 was unbelievable. They didn't lose a game. They were really, really good.
That was like one of the best ever.
Can you imagine if Georgia fired Kirby Smart because he couldn't beat Alabama? Which, by the way, he still has not beating Bama.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So it's like that was kind of an unfair ask for Florida. Their expectations were all the way up here, and Dan Mullen taking them to 2 SEC titles and losing to Bama. I was like, okay, well, how much farther can he really go? So I think they fired him a bit prematurely, even though the writing was kind of on the wall there as well. Billy Napier, it felt like every time Billy Napier's job was in jeopardy, he would get a big ranked road win. And it's like, oh, Billy Napier's safe again. Then he would lose. Yeah. Then he would lose to like a USF or something like that. And then his team would kind of lose to themselves. Whether they would I'm thinking about the USF game where they spit on a player and they got unsportsmanlike.
Yeah, bad discipline.
They look like a bad coach. They look like an undisciplined team for sure. So it's like that was okay. He's on the hot seat again. Then they would beat a ranked team. It's like, oh well, so eventually they did pull the plug. I thought they would let him end the season out, but the one I'm shocked about, George, is the Brian Kelly one. I'm not shocked, but I'm shocked at how it got to where it is, because last time we recorded this, George, LSU was in the top 10. They were 5-1. They were going to go to Vandy, and they were on a short list of national title contenders. Were they? They were one of the premier, popular picks to win the whole thing. They were 5-1 literally 2 weeks ago. They lose at Vandy. Okay, Vandy's good. Vandy's a good team this year.
Game they weren't favored in. Let's be clear.
Vandy was favored for the first time against a top 10 team since like the 50s. So good for Vandy. Then they get absolutely trounced at home at night in Tiger Stadium. We already know how tough it is to win at LSU in Death Valley at night. They get absolutely trounced, as you just mentioned. They get like 49 hung on their head. And that that right there is the end of Brian Kelly, as we know it. 2 weeks ago, they were 5-1 in the top 10. Now they are 5-3. They are unranked, and he is out of a job. That all happened in literally a 2-week span. I'm not shocked that they fired him, obviously, because after that performance, how can you survive a performance when you get 30 bombed at home at night against Texas A&M? That's a firing if I've ever seen one. I mean, we just talked about how Penn State, they ponied up and fired. They found the buyout money to fire James Franklin. After that loss at home at night, you're going to find the money to buy out James Franklin or to buy out Brian Kelly's contract. And they did. So I'm not shocked that they fired him, but I'm shocked that it went from this, how good they looked 2 weeks ago. They were 5-1 in the top 10, and now they're unranked and he's out of a job in 2 weeks. It's almost similar to the James Franklin one, where remember James Franklin and Penn State was like number 3 in the country. They lose to Oregon. Then 2 weeks later, they lose to
UCLA and then Northwestern.
UCLA and Northwestern in consecutive weeks. 2 weeks later, he's gone. After losses to UCLA and Northwestern, he's done. And it's like, okay, wow, that happened really fast. But I'm just shocked to see it happen this way. I mean, obviously, I agree with the firing. I mean, he did honestly worse at LSU with the expectations and the talent he had than Billy Napier did. I mean, did he not? I mean, he was really underwhelming at LSU.
I mean, he hadn't had a defense. I mean, obviously, Jaden Daniels was one of the best seasons of all time at the quarterback position, and they didn't make anywhere near the playoff. But yeah, I thought it was interesting how fast the water kind of soured there. You know, I mean, to me, in a way, I thought that. I mean, and LSU fans, the stories come out after the fact a lot of the time, but you know, it seemed like there was always kind of a disconnect with him in the program there, and that he didn't quite understand what it meant to be an LSU Tiger, nor did he have the pride it felt like to be an LSU Tiger. But you know, it kind of to me was like, you know, you saw him beat Clemson in week 1, and in a game where they played terrible in the first half and then brought it all the way back in the second half and dominated the second half. And you know, you thought LSU's back, you know, the defense is back, quarterback, I had this Heisman level quarterback, you know, all these things, and it just kind of never materialized in LSU, and it just. You know, it's hard to put a finger on it, but I mean, when you get trounced like that by A&M at home, and I think last year they got smoked at home as well. You know, that just can't happen. And you know, I heard Pate talking about this, Josh Pate talking about this kind of as soon as it happened on Sunday. But you know, we kind of saw A&M go in there and really weaponize that environment. You know, we talk about how it can be a really scary place to play at home, you know, or on the road at night in Death Valley, or in the fake Death Valley, I'll say, but in LSU's Death Valley, because you know their fans are on you, but you know, with the Brian Kelly era, you know, there already kind of been some unease, some unrest. There have been fans been calling for his job because he never wins the opener and he's terrible on defense for years now. And so there was already kind of some unease there and some unrest there. With the loss to Vandy, which no matter how good Vandy is, they can be top 10, which they should be. When you lose to Vandy, your fan base doesn't love it.
As LSU, you can't lose to Vandy.
As LSU, you can't lose to Vandy, which, you know, even though that's a good Vandy team, you can't lose to Vandy. So when you saw A&M come in there, go up early and just run away with it. Obviously, the stadium emptied out, but you kind of immediately felt like that. Screw Brian Kelly, fire Brian Kelly. And this went from a very nice, very friendly home environment to the exact opposite, where A&M was actually wielding the better environment. They were using the environment to their benefit. And so you kind of just saw the LSU team pretty much just give up. And, you know, a lot of this coming out after the fact, where Brian Kelly, you know, people have terrible things to say about him. And I can't speak on him as a person, but I mean, it's the way you leave a program is indicative of the kind of program runner and the kind of person you were. And you can kind of see everyone. I heard the alumni are finally back in the building. I saw Ryan Clark was there. And he's like, finally, we haven't been around, which is a huge thing. LSU with one of the most deep NFL alumni networks in the entire country, maybe the deepest wide receiver position wise outside of Ohio State. And so to me, it just felt like I said, he never really got it. And you know, there's stories about he was golfing and on the beach during big recruiting weekends. And you know, when you're just there, you know, maybe because you like that SEC logo and you don't want to put in the hours it takes to beat a guy like Nick Saban, who was there at the time when they hired him, and that's what's going to happen. So I mean, Napier and Kelly, I understand them. It's tough, and so I think what I'm more interested in is to see who the next guy is. Obviously, Lane Kiffin. Is the name that everyone's throwing around, first for Florida, but now for LSU, because that's kind of the higher name job. But
I was just going to say,
I'd love to hear your take, because I think it's Kiffin, but I mean, Kiffin feels pretty comfortable at Ole Miss right now.
Well, I was just going to say, because that's a great point. I think with both of these jobs coming open, I want to see which one do you think is a better job. I think LSU is the better job, right? I mean, LSU is I
would say LSU is the better job.
They're both great jobs, by the way, but I think we both agree that LSU is the better job. And I think we both agree that Lane Kiffin's probably the top candidate, right? I know Joe Cloud, I listened to his podcast earlier. He was mentioning that regardless of what happens, Lane Kiffin is going to be one of the highest paid head coaches in the country, whether he stays at Ole Miss or he gets a huge pay raise somewhere else.
100%.
Dan Lanning is going to be the highest paid coach in college football, whether he stays at Oregon again.
If he's not already, yeah.
If he's not already, right, yeah. But they're going to – I mean, you just saw Indiana say, we're locking up Curt Cignetti. He ain't going nowhere. I think you're going to start to see – because LSU and Florida are going to be calling up everybody under the sun, being like, hey, we're a hot spot destination in the SEC.
Yeah, it's a destination program for sure, either one.
Of course, but you're going to see the programs that they already have, or for example, Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, those guys, they're already at their programs and they're winning. They're going to be, wooed to stay and wooed to leave, so they're going to be hot commodities regardless. Urban Meyer, he's not coaching right now, but he's going to get called probably. I don't know who is the guy for either of these teams, but I want to get back to the Brian Kelly point where he's a Northeast guy. It didn't really feel like he ever fit in with the LSU culture. I mean, he immediately from the first time we saw him at LSU, he was doing a fake Southern accent. It just never really worked. And that's even with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. I mean, they still lost, I believe, 3 or 4 games last year. They were never close to the playoff.
Oh yeah, they had a lot of talent on the offense for a long time.
A lot of talent on the offense, and they always underwhelmed. And it was like they were always underperforming, I should say. And this year they come out and they finally win an opener, and they're the number 1 team in the country for a couple weeks. And then their offense was never humming. They couldn't run the ball very well. Nussmeier looked like he regressed. And then it all culminates in this absolute throttling at home against A&M. And A&M, by the way, looks really, really good. They're number 3 in the country. But Brian Kelly did not last anywhere near as long as I think either of us thought he would at LSU. And he didn't even get close to a national championship appearance at LSU. Even the expansion playoff last year, didn't even get in the playoff that year. So really underwhelming stuff from Brian Kelly. I don't know where do you think he goes next, and I don't know I don't know who's going to be taking either of these jobs, Florida or LSU. I mean, these are one of the best jobs in the country, but I don't know who is going to be the hot guy that they go after. I really don't. There's a lot of good candidates, but
yeah, everyone's a candidate, right? And I think to answer your first question, I would say LSU is the best job available.
I agree.
And, the people punching the air right now really is Florida, obviously, because they no longer kind of have that access to whoever they want, it feels like. And then Penn State, obviously, they've become really the third tier in a place where you kind of felt like, if it was just Penn State, they could have gotten a huge home run swing kind of higher. And maybe they still can, not that they won't. I'm sure they've got plenty of money. But, them having to pay that Franklin buyout, plus with these other 2 vacancies coming available, I think it's going to be a tough sledding for Penn State. But yeah, I think I like Lane Kiffin a lot. I think that if he was to go, I think he would go probably to LSU. But I mean, it's hard to say because everyone's a little different. Everyone prefers different jobs for different reasons. We know Lane Kiffin's an SEC guy. I don't see him leaving the SEC or anything like that. Maybe Ohio State at some point if that would ever happen. But I don't see that happening. But to me, I think the biggest name that I've heard really was LSU was Marcus Freeman.
Yes.
The guy that Brian Kelly hired, who
replaced Brian Kelly,
who then took Notre Dame's to higher heights than I'd argue Brian Kelly ever did just last season, making a national championship game. And I love Marcus Freeman. He's one of those guys that he's great with the media. Players love him. He's a smart guy. He was a former player, and he was obviously we know he's an Ohio State alumni. So maybe there's a spot where that's the job that he wants after all. Maybe he's not leaving for any other job. But I think that Marcus Freeman's a great look, and Eli Drinkwitz is another great look. Kind of depending on where the chips fall. I think that Kiffin is the first name just based on his SEC consistency, who he's worked with, and what he's done at Ole Miss has been so impressive. But yeah, it's just there's so many things. There's so many dominoes here to me because we don't know if Brent Venables is back for next season because his job has been questionable. We don't know Shane Beamer's back for next season if his job's questionable. And then
Mike Norvell,
obviously. And then one of the biggest things that I think is totally getting overlooked is the UCLA job. I think that the opportunity at UCLA is very underrated. I think that right now, really the only, obviously Oregon's out west recruiting unbelievably well.
USC.
The only team in California that's really recruiting is USC.
Yeah.
I mean, and so if UCLA gets the right guy, and I don't know if they're willing to dish out the money for the right guy. Obviously, Jerry Neuheisel looks very interesting as an offensive coordinator. I don't know if he's going to be the coach, but I think UCLA is one of those jobs that's getting super underrated right now. Obviously, it's not at the same level of these SEC jobs, not at the same level as Penn State or Florida State would have become available. But the right guy goes to UCLA with the resources there, with the recruiting hub that is the western portion of America. I think that that's a place that is underrated by the general public, that the coaching sphere and the group of coaches and the individuals themselves would find as a high level job. But I said a lot there. More to say, I liked Freeman a lot and I like Drinkwitz a lot after Kiffin, but Kiffin's my number 1 guy.
By the way, George,
UCLA.
Let's play a hypothetical game here. So let's say Florida State fires Mike Norvell because he just has been struggling so bad. You can't possibly go into next season with Mike Norvell. Florida State's available. LSU is available. Penn State is available. Florida's available. Arkansas is available. UCLA is available. And then also, I don't know if you saw this. It was floated that Steve Sarkisian's thinking about the NFL. I don't think he's going to leave Texas.
I saw him deny it, but that would be a huge wrench.
He was linked to Tennessee Titans possibly, but I don't really see him leaving for the NFL. But if he did, Texas is immediately one of the best jobs, obviously, that comes available. I've never seen a coaching carousel possibly like this. First of all, it's all mid-season. Right now, we're in the middle of the season, so it's never happened. Yeah. This is unprecedented stuff. Like, obviously, at the end of the year,
not even Halloween yet. I mean, we're not even in November.
Not Halloween yet. I mean, it's insane. But we've seen Lincoln Riley go from Oklahoma to USC overnight at like the end of Bedlam, but never mid-season stuff like this. So basically, and I want to throw another name out there. Kelvin Shepard is the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. He's doing a heck of a job with the Lions. Former LSU guy. I wonder if LSU would almost go off the grain and go with a former player who would be great in recruiting. They have the resources. I don't know if it necessarily matters if the coach has a pedigree of a resume of like a Brian Kelly or a pedigree of a resume like a Lane Kiffin. I honestly think that LSU can go out and get a guy that if the fan base relates to him and he relates to the fan base, I think they want to get the anti-Brian Kelly because Brian Kelly does not relate at all with the LSU fan base and at all with the people in the higher ups. So I think they might want to go different, almost go the opposite of Brian Kelly and be like, okay, let's get a guy who relates and feels like an LSU Tiger. So that would be my one shout there. But yeah, let's say if all those jobs come available, George, I mean, who's taking what job? Is it going to be Franklin getting traded for? I mean, is Franklin going to the SEC again? Is he going to get an Arkansas, Florida, LSU job? Is Brian Kelly going to get a job somewhere else? I mean, he's not going to be unemployed. We wouldn't think. He's too good. He's got too good of a resume to just not be head coach. I mean, he obviously could, with his buyout money, he could just be sipping, champagne on the beach, wherever he's at. But I think, wants to coach again. So where would everyone be going if this is how it goes up? If everyone gets opened up and all the offers are there, like what would even happen?
I mean, it's just not even. It's so hard to even begin to imagine where it might go. I think that James Franklin is going to find his way into another high-level Power 5 job. I think he
the SEC probably, yeah,
probably the SEC. I mean, who knows? I think that there's a hand. Like, I think that there's probably 4 guys who I'm like, I think are not going. Maybe 5 now with the Signetti extension. But there's 5 guys that I'm like, I know they're not going anywhere. It's Dan Lanning, it's Kirby Smart, it's Kalen Bohr, it's Ryan Day, and it's probably now Kurt Signetti. Those feel like those 5. Elko, I think, as well. He just got to A&M. He loves it there. But to me, it feels like especially if Sark goes, which I don't think he is. I know obviously he denied it in the press conference, but everyone denies it until they take it, right? We've the Matt Rule experience is very specific. But yeah, to me, it's if Sark goes, it just is a whole entire can of who knows what. I think that and here's a very, very, kind of out there Clemson take. And, I'm not sure what Dabo's future looks like. I don't think he's going anywhere. But if Clemson were to become available and Oklahoma were to become available, Brent Venables' reunion in Clemson is something that I would love to see.
Agree.
Even if it was just as a coordinator, whatever his
That's
role
another
is,
one.
I would love to see. And so, yeah, it's hard to even begin where to start. But I think the biggest name that is likely to move would be Kiffin, followed by Marcus Freeman. Brent Key, we've heard a lot about. He's been very impressive this year at Georgia Tech. He went to Georgia Tech, so I think it would take a lot for him to leave what he's created there, and he's created a lot. I think depending on who the next recruiting class, the next quarterback looks like. Obviously, Haynes King's been there for a while now, but once he's gone, it kind of is a little shaky. But yeah, to me, it's like Freeman, Kiffin, Key, Drink. John Summerall obviously has had a lot of traction for a few years now. I mean, he could maybe stay in Louisiana, not even have to move houses if he were to get the LSU job. So, I mean, to me, I'm looking immediately within the college ranks,
right?
Because to move from the NFL down, you mentioned
Kelvin Shepard.
Yeah. It'd be a big move, obviously, and to be, like I said earlier, to be a college head coach is so much less about coaching than it ever has been, especially with the number of assistants and number of whatever we have now and the way assistant coaches get paid. The actual product on the field is only partially representative of what the actual head coach does, and it's more about the building and the culture and the community and recruiting. And so that's why your Kirby Smarts and your Dan Lannings are so rare, because not only are these guys geniuses, Nick Saban's obviously are these guys geniuses on the field, but they're great people, they're awesome people off the field. And so I think my favorite guy to move is Freeman. I love Marcus Freeman. He's awesome. The man. Awesome. What I saw last year after the loss to NIU, I mean, it's unbelievable. That
would have broke a lot of head coaches. That would have been.
I mean, that especially with Notre Dame not having a conference where they don't have a safety net. It's not like they were in the ACC in 2020 when they can just play the ACC games and win the ACC championship. So, I mean, it's really so hard to say. But I mean, like you said, if some of these dominoes start falling like they possibly could, because right now already it's an unbelievable coaching search. But yeah, I think that if the certain jobs open up, we're going to see guys who you think are very comfortable at their job not as comfortable as it realizes, because the money being thrown around and the opportunity being thrown around is going to be top tier.
Yeah, I also want to mention Alex Golesh, the head coach at USF. He had been linked to Florida. He's a really good head coach. He's gotten USF turned around from like a really bad team a few years ago to now really, really good. And again, by the way, a couple of years ago, we probably would have mentioned Deion Sanders on here as an LSU candidate or as a Florida State candidate if Mike Norvell thing goes off the rails. But with Colorado looking like they do like this year, it's not. I mean, I'm not going to say Deion's not a good coach because he turned around Colorado, which is almost impossible to do. But Colorado looks really, really bad this year. But we saw just a couple years ago when he had Colorado rolling, he was kind of linked to the Florida State. Obviously, he went to Florida State. The Seminoles at that time were good. LSU obviously is another one, but it's going to be very interesting. If obviously LSU's already come available, if Florida State comes available, that'll be really interesting to see who replaces Mike Norvell. Florida, same thing. Penn State, same thing. And then obviously you mentioned UCLA. Arkansas is another one. Oklahoma State's another one. And then great job by you. I thought Clemson's another one too. I don't think they're going to get rid of Dabo.
I think it's hard to say they're going to get rid of Dabo, but I mean, it would have to be. Yeah, you have to consider it, right? With Franklin and everything happening.
Look, Clemson's 3-4. I mean, Brian Kelly's fired at 5-3. I mean, it's if Clemson goes 5-7, misses a bowl game.
We lost to Brian Kelly. We at home.
Yes, we did. I mean, great point by you. So now let's shift into our midseason NFL. I mean, right now we're just checking on the NFL because we are 8 weeks in. Yeah, we're 8 weeks in the NFL season. So George, the best team in football right now is the Indianapolis Colts. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. They're 7-1, best record in football by a full game. Nobody else has 7 wins or only has 1 loss. So great job by them through 8 weeks. I really thought I would not be good. But so through 8 weeks, what's your biggest takeaway? What's your biggest surprise team or underwhelming team? Like what's your overall thoughts on the season so far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Colts have to be the biggest surprise. I think that, I mean, we knew that O-line was solid. We knew Jonathan Taylor's great. And I like the receiving core they have there. But I mean, the addition of Tyler Warren, kind of the way that they've been able to use him, Daniel Jones being on schedule and on time in that Shane Steichen offense. I mean, they've been unbelievable. They've been by far the most impressive team. For disappointments, I think you got to go Ravens. It's for the AFC at least. I mean, part of that's the Lamar injury, but part of it is just a defense that's been hurt and it's just been terrible. I mean, we've kind of seen Marlon Humphrey regress here pretty badly. And I love Marlo. He's great personality, great player, but we've seen a lot of these defensive guys on the Ravens really been disappointing. Obviously, Owe, they just traded him, I believe, or was it he was out for the season?
I believe they did trade Owe.
They traded Owe, and then it was Ngakwe or someone just got out for the season.
Yes.
Sorry, I got my names mixed up now. But yeah, I mean, I think that I still love the Chiefs just based on what I've seen over the last 3 weeks. They've been like since week 4, I think the number 1 offense in football. Spag defense is always great. I mean, they just blew the Commanders out on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
And so it for the AFC. I love the Colts. I think that the AFC North is still wide open.
It is.
Steelers have impressed me, but they've now more recently kind of been a little disappointing as of
George.
late.
Their defense too has been falling off a cliff, just like Baltimore. Their defense has not been good at all.
So to me, the AFC just feels like the Chiefs again, but with the way the Colts are playing, you just don't know. So, I mean, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I agree. If I had to pick a team out of the AFC right now, it would be Kansas City for sure. Now, interestingly enough, Kansas City and Buffalo play this Sunday, and those games are always classics. It's the Allen Mahomes show, as we know. And Kansas City now, they're my favorite to get out of the AFC, but right now they are 3rd in their own division. So Denver's playing awesome football. They're 6-2. And if Kansas City wants to get that home field advantage that they always have throughout the playoffs and that number 1 seed with the bye, they're going to have to get through Denver to win their own division. And then obviously if they beat Buffalo this week, that's huge for tiebreakers as well. So this week's game, I believe Kansas City's next 2 games are against Buffalo and Indianapolis, possibly the 2 biggest competitors to them in the AFC. And then as well as Denver, they play them, I believe a little bit later.
One of those has got to be an AFC Championship preview.
100%. They've got Buffalo this week, Indianapolis next week. They still have to play Denver twice. They have not played them yet once this season. So that's going to be really interesting to unpack. The AFC North is wide open. Baltimore's 2-5, yet they have a real shot to win the division because their schedule in the back half of the season is super easy. Pittsburgh's schedule in the back half of the season is very difficult. And Pittsburgh's defense is the most expensive in the league right now, but they're not producing at all defensively. They have not been good. They allowed Joe Flacco to get 400 yards, Jordan Love. They are not stopping anything right now with a pulse. Baltimore obviously plays my squad tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football, and Baltimore has a chance to kind of rattle off some wins here and get back in the race in the AFC. But I think we both agree Kansas City is the favorite to get back to the Super Bowl right now. Maybe Buffalo gets their act together. Indianapolis is really surprising and fun. I don't know. They give a little bit of Minnesota vibes from last year. I don't know if Daniel Jones in a playoff game outplays Allen or Mahomes or whoever. Denver and New England are interesting. They're both 6-2. I don't know. Drake May is awesome, by the way. That's real, I think. Denver is fun because Bo Nix has been a kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. He's been awesome in fourth quarters, leading comebacks. I mean, he had 33 points in the fourth quarter against the Giants. We didn't mention that game, but that was 2 weeks ago. Obviously, last week he smoked the Cowboys. The week before that, he had 0 points through 3 quarters, then turned into John Elway in the fourth quarter against the Giants. And then I believe a couple weeks prior, he was down 17-0 to the Eagles. Came back and won that game.
Or 17-3, something like that.
17-3. He's been very impressive in the second half of these games, fourth quarter of these games, but the first half leaves a lot to be desired. So I don't know. Denver, I think, is really, really good. I think Denver's defense is awesome. I think Denver's O-line is awesome. Bo Nix can be awesome and then also can be unwatchable. So we don't really know. It's a little bit of that year 2 Josh Allen stuff where it was like, he's fun. I don't know if he's great yet. Bo Nix, I don't think he's great yet, but he's been very fun to watch. But I think Kansas City, I think we both agree, Kansas City is the squad out of the AFC. As of right now, if we had to do a mid-season Super Bowl prediction, I believe Kansas City would be our representative for the AFC, correct?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like you said, the Broncos have been really impressive. I feel like they haven't been able to put together a 4-quarter performance really until last week against the Cowboys, who they just destroyed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just feels like, the Colts, I don't think Daniel Jones is going to outplay anybody really in the playoffs, but I mean, the way they run the ball, they just need him to complete 20 passes.
True.
So, I mean, I like the Colts a lot. I like the kind of brand of football they're playing. Their defense is very underrated.
Yeah, it is.
For the NFC, really, I mean, obviously the Bucs have been great. I think the Packers have been great.
Yeah.
To me, I've been, and this is kind of one that is flying under the radar, but the Panthers have been really impressive this season.
Panthers,
they've had a couple bad losses. Last week the Bills finally decided to run the football. The Bills finally decided, and they actually won. They dominated. Yeah. But I think the Panthers. I've been sneakily impressed by the Panthers. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Dolphins. These aren't the best wins, but I mean, they took care of business when they needed to.
They beat the Jets as well. Yeah,
they beat the Jets. Yeah, so I mean, they took care of business when they needed to, but I think that I've been a little bit impressed by the Panthers. I think they're going to start maybe come back to earth, but I mean, the NFC, I don't really know who I love. I like the Eagles. I don't know if I trust what's even happening there. They look a little better the last couple of weeks. The Packers are good. They're very young. They're very much like unfinished. When Jordan Love is on, he's great. The Bucs are hurt. The NFC West, I don't trust really any team in the NFC West more than the other. So to me, I mean, like, the Panthers are just kind of what came to my mind. I've seen the Panthers at 4-4. Obviously, I don't think they're going to win. No, hold on, not to win the NFC. Hold on, not to win the NFC.
It's the most surprising. Okay, my
bad. I was saying most surprising. Yeah. No, that's on me. I should have clarified that. To win the NFC, it feels like the Eagles or the Packers. But in terms of surprising, I mean, the Panthers are second in the South. That's what I'm.
That's a great point. I preface.
Sorry, we got a little miscommunication there. That's on me.
Exactly. We went from Chiefs representing the AFC to, in the NFC, I'm like in the Panthers. I was like, wait a second.
That's on me. That's on me.
But no, I agree. The most surprising team probably would be Carolina.
Most surprising.
I think Carolina or possibly, I'm trying to think of who else. I
mean, the Bucs with all the injuries have been really impressive.
Yeah, exactly right. I think actually Chicago's been pretty surprising as well. I did not think they'd be this. I mean, we took their over, but I did not think that Chicago would be. Now they did lose to Tyler Huntley last week. That kind of soured me a little bit.
Honestly, Chicago and this might be a little sour grapes. I think that their record is a little bit misleading. I think that the Commanders handed them one.
They did hand them one.
And we talked about this, but and I like the Bears, but I think that when Caleb Williams starts to play well, this is a team that has a legitimate ceiling.
Yeah, they do.
Once Caleb starts to kind of. And obviously, it's not easy to run a Ben Johnson offense. It's not easy to be quarterback in the NFL. But it feels like, and I hate to say it, that Caleb is arguably the weakest part of that team right now. And that when he turns it on, I think that they're going to be very good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I think Caleb, he's had some games though where he's had flashes. I'm like, okay, that's a really. I mean, he's had outside of that Dallas game, he hasn't put up a full fourth quarter of good football. There's been good halves. There's been good quarters even, but I do agree the consistency there is a little bit lacking still. But in the NFC, as far as like to represent it, if I was to do a midseason thing right now, and I think there's like 7 teams you could pick for. It's a wide open conference.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of good football being played in the NFC.
Yeah, the Eagles, the Packers, the Rams, the Lions, the Bucks, and even Seattle. If you threw Seattle in there, I wouldn't be shocked.
I think you have to throw Seattle in there. That defense has been great.
They're first place in the division right now. Yeah, they're first place in the division. I think San Francisco, unfortunately, they're just an infirmary. Without the injuries, I would have had San Francisco right up in there. That would have been 8 teams. I think
they're still 5-3. They're still
5-3 despite having literally all their all-pros are injured. It's kind of crazy. If they win 10 games, which they very well could if you look at their schedule, I think Kyle Shanahan might win Coach of the Year. That's going to be a heck of a job if they're able to win 10 games with that roster right now, how depleted it is. I think right now I'd go with the Rams. Rams or Eagles. I think the Rams, first of all, they're 5-2. They just smoked Dallas in London. I mean, not Dallas. They smoked Jacksonville in London, and Jacksonville's pretty good in London through the years. They've actually had a pretty good record in London.
Yeah.
The Rams, their only 2 losses this year have come in an overtime loss against the 49ers where they couldn't make a field goal, and then obviously they ran the ball on 4th and an inch, took the ball out of Stafford's hands. I don't know if I agree with that decision in overtime. And McVay took ownership after the game. He's like, I should have just put the ball in Stafford's hands in overtime there. And then the other loss they had was to the Eagles, and all they had to do was not get 2 kicks blocked in the last 5 minutes of that game, or they win that game. So the Rams could easily be 7-0 right now. I think if they played Philadelphia again, I don't think that they get multiple kicks blocked. That was a little bit of voodoo magic by the Super Bowl champion Eagles. I think the Rams just flat out outplayed them in that game, and they lost because of special teams. But if the Rams played them again, I just think I trust Stafford and McVay a little bit more than Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. Even though, and again, the last 2 times they played, the last 2 times the Rams have played the Eagles, it's been in Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, and I think they've been the better team in both games. But unfortunately,
last year with the snow was a little weird. I remember
Blizzard was a little weird, but the Rams were without like 4 offensive line starters, and if Matthew Stafford has like a second more to throw the ball and Jalen Carter's not in his face immediately, maybe they win that game.
Sure.
But and again, Kyron Williams fumbled in the red zone in the 4th quarter of that game. So the Rams had opportunities to win that game too. But this year for sure, the Rams should have beat the Eagles. I mean that was an absolute win for the Eagles.
That was a win.
That was a win for the Rams until obviously Cardi's kick got blocked twice by Jalen Carter and the Eagles. So I think they might play again in January, but I think I trust the Rams a little bit. But if you were to tell me the Rams, the Eagles of course are the favorites, but the Packers even, Tampa Bay has been super impressive. Tampa Bay was my preseason Super Bowl pick. I think they just have a lot of injuries right now. If they're able to get healthy, and Mike Evans, unfortunately, it looks like he'll be out for the rest of the regular season. If they're able to somehow get him back and he looks anything close to what he was before he got hurt, and all those, and Godwin, same thing, McMillan, all those other guys, Bucky Irving still out. If the Bucs can get healthy, I think they have a good shot too. But in the NFC, George, you can pick any of these 6-7 teams. I would not be shocked if they made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like this is a year where a 9 or 10 win team is not going to get in from the NFC.
Right. Yeah.
And so
it might be your team.
It might be us. To me right now, we just got to survive. We've got the Commanders have an absurd draw. We got Detroit. We got Seattle, then Detroit at 3-5 already, and Jaden half healthy. But yeah, no, it feels like a year where it kind of is anyone out of the NFC. Yeah. I think that the Eagles with the experience, they did it last year. Is kind of where you want to lean. At least that's the way I kind of think. But the Eagles have been so strange this year, and obviously with a lot more football to play, anything can happen. But like the NFC West has 3 5-win teams right now. If all 3 of those teams make the playoffs, someone's getting bounced. Someone's getting unlucky.
Of course.
So yeah, it's a really good year. It's another year where MVP, and now it's kind of shifting to Mahomes. That's how the odds kind of took a dive towards him, but it's still very much open. With 9 more games to play. So it's a really good year this year. I saw, and now Tyler Shuck is starting for the Saints, so keep your MVP tickets ready for him too. But
yeah, watch out, Tyler Shuck.
No, but it's a good year. It's a great year. I like the Bucs if they get healthy, like you said. The Seahawks, I think that it's weird because it's like I saw something that the Seahawks are like 9-2 on the road under Mike McDonald. They're like better. They're way better on the road than they are at home.
Very strange. Yeah.
So it's weird because Seattle's notoriously been a very tough place to play.
Their only 2 losses, George, have been at home week 1 against the Niners and then home week 5 against the Bucs in that crazy game of the year type of game.
I mean, those are 2 tough games, but still, it's weird, but I just don't even know who to pick. Like I think the Eagles again. I think the Packers have all the potential in the world. They're just flying around on defense every time.
Defensively,
But yeah, and it feels like everyone. What's the word I'm looking for here? It feels like it's going to be an eventful trade deadline. It feels like a lot's going to happen here. It feels like
someone's going to get much
there's a lot of teams with a lot of holes. Teams getting better. Teams selling. So, and I think the Commanders got to make a decision here soon: sell or don't sell, because there's a lot of old talent sitting on that defense.
Yeah, unfortunately, George, I do think that there's 7 teams in the NFC right now that kind of separate themselves, and unfortunately, there's only 7 playoff spots. Yeah. So, if you're Washington, you're definitely in an uphill battle here at 3. And we mentioned this 2 weeks ago on the podcast. We said it's kind of a sneaky must-win in Dallas this week because you had Kansas City, Seattle, and Detroit after that. So if you fall to 3-4, you probably fall to 3-5, and then obviously
you watch that KC game, and that first half. I mean, there's 3 different drives with turnovers and plus territory. Yep. So it's just a team that's throwing away opportunities right now. You can't have that.
Exactly right. And in the NFC, I think if you were to tell me that the Rams, the Eagles, the Bucs, or the Packers, or again, if Seattle and San Francisco as possible wild cards in the NFC West, I wouldn't be shocked. Again, if anyone else has emerged, Chicago doesn't really feel like a playoff team. Washington doesn't feel like a playoff team right now. I'm trying to think of who would fall out of that. Possibly the only team I could see falling out of that is San Francisco, just because of injuries. Other than that, I think the other 6 teams are really good. I'm talking about the Lions, the Rams, the Bucks, the Eagles, the Packers, and Seahawks. I think
every team with 5-win. The 5-win teams are all because there's 7 teams with 5+ wins.
Exactly right. Yes. So someone's gonna get left out, and I don't know who it's gonna be right now, but Carolina's 4-4. I don't think Carolina's gonna make the playoffs. So it looked like Washington, Minnesota might be one of those teams that's like on the outside looking in, just because there's too many teams.
I will say for disappointment is Minnesota has been a team that really has just kind of tanked it for me. And obviously, Wentz being injured now, JJ McCarthy got injured, but to me, at the beginning of the season, you could kind of see maybe the writing was on the wall that the quarterback situation there is not what they want it to be, and that Sam Darnold leaving is going to hurt them.
Yeah.
I am still very much need to be moved on JJ McCarthy. I was on draft night. I wasn't a fan of the pick. I think that Jalen Milroe is a guy that I would upside wise take over him. So it's just like there's a lot of question marks on that pick, but the Vikings for sure have been very disappointing this season. Defensively too. I mean, you'd think that Brian Flores' defense would be a little bit better, and they've outside of that crazy week against Cincinnati where they kind of just had a million turnovers, they've been pretty average. So
they have
gotta see some change in Minnesota. Maybe we'll see.
The NFC is wide open. George, we will be back. Probably I think this Tuesday we have the first annual edition of the college football playoff ranking. So no more people, thank God. So we can react to that on. I believe that's this Tuesday. It's either this Tuesday or next Tuesday. I think it's
this upcoming Tuesday. Yeah,
if it's this upcoming Tuesday, we can definitely do something like we can react to those rankings for sure. So we'll be back with that because this is usually the time of the year where we're talking college football and the NFL because obviously baseball season is about to be over. This week is the last week of baseball. I mean, there's no more after this. But I think
when we record again, the World Series will be over. Or maybe
exactly. Once we record again, the World Series will be over, and we will probably see some interesting rankings. We'll react to the first edition of the rankings. The rankings don't get really interesting until probably
week 10.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And then we're gonna say, okay, who actually moves up, who moves down? Because no one's moving up or down right now. All we're doing is we're getting the first edition of the rankings. So right now we're not gonna see any up arrows, down arrows, whatever. But it's gonna be very interesting to see these next few weeks of college football. Who's kind of positioned themselves in the playoff as we head into November college football, which is the best time of year, obviously, for college football. And then obviously we get into closer to the Thanksgiving time of year for football is NFL. Obviously, all that stuff is great. So awesome episode, George. We will be back, as I mentioned, next week with some more football stuff. Obviously, we can recap the World Series as well. If we get 7 games, that'd be awesome. It would be a great way to end the season. But yeah, thanks, George.
Yep, it's always a pleasure.
All righty.